Chapter 8. "I can't wait until we move in together," Alyssa was saying, skipping ahead of Ken happily and swinging her arms with joy. "I have everything planned out. I know where I want to live, what I want the place to look like. As soon as we've finished college," she sighed, turning back to face him with a wide smile upon her face. "As soon as we finish college," she said to him, "we can be married and start a family." Ken slowed to a stop, giving her a level expression. "Is that what you really want?" he asked her. "What do you mean?" she asked him, her smile faltering slightly. "I mean," Ken began uncertainly, "do you mind having your future planned out for you like this? You know we're only together in the first place because of our parents." Alyssa stopped then, moving closer to him. "Meeting you is the best thing that's ever happened to me," she spoke genuinely. "Do you not feel the same?" "I do, but—" Ken hesitated. "I just want to know that this is what you really want. I don't want to think that you're here with me just because your parents want you to be." Alyssa reached out to him, taking both his hands in hers. "I love you, Ken. I love you more than anything. I don't ever want to be parted from you." Ken stared at her, his expression somber. Alyssa lifted her head to his, kissing him gently. Ken's attention drifted out of focus, and he closed his eyes, closing his fingers as Alyssa held him. As he kissed her back, Mustang's words rang through his mind. "Live your life how you want, not how others want you to live." "Come on," Ken said to Alyssa, speaking more confidently now, taking her hand in his and pulling her along gently. "Let's go to the park." Time passed, and Ken had not seen Mustang in many weeks. Things began to slowly slide back to the way they were before, and Ken found himself feeling happy, feeling liberated. He thought to himself how great things were now, and how he had not argued with his family or Alyssa in ages, not since Mustang. The cool breeze lifted his hair, and the warm sun shone its rays gently on his face. "Things are great. Things are just the way they were before. So why do I feel so different?" "Ken!" He looked around at the sound of his mother's voice, seeing his mother and the rest of his family sitting upon the picnic blanket. He rose and went over to them. "Come along, dear," his mother said to him. "If you don't hurry up, the food will be gone." "All right," Ken laughed, sitting between his mother and his sister, who was busy stuffing crisps into her mouth as fast as possible. "Sue, don't do that," her mother scolded. "You'll choke." "She's right," Ken told her, as Sue took a big gulp of water from one of the small bottles they had brought with them. "You shouldn't do that. It's not ladylike." Ken took a napkin and dabbed her mouth as she began to dribble. Sue began to squirm, flinching and trying to get away from him. "Why do I care about being ladylike?" Sue protested. "How will you find a good boyfriend if you don't act like a lady?" their mother said to her. "I don't want a boyfriend," Sue said, wrinkling her nose. "Ooh!" Ken only smiled at her as their father shook his head. "So how's Alyssa then, anyway?" Ken's brother Walter asked him. "Wasn't she supposed to come out with us today?" "Yeah, she's fine," Ken answered with a nod. "She'll be here a bit later. She's visiting her grandparents now. Her parents are dropping her off later." The happy family stayed here in the park for a long time, talking happily as they ate the food they had packed and brought with them. Food that at first had been overflowing from the bag they carried it in. After that, they played games, ball games, games involving hoops. They played hide and seek. And when the wind began to pick up, they brought out the kite they had packed away and began to play with that. Ken was just watching his mother and sister playing with the kite, sitting beside the picnic blanket, as beside him, his father and brother played a game of cards. Suddenly, in the distance, he saw a figure approaching with corn-colored hair. His heart leapt in his chest as he recognized Alyssa, and a smile broke across his face. He rose to his feet, running to her. She grinned happily at him as she watched him approach, throwing her arms open to greet him. He embraced her tightly once before lifting her in his arms and hugging her again. "Ken," Alyssa giggled, holding on to him as he lifted her. "Put me down." "Ah, stop," she squealed. "That tickles." He stayed his hands, gently lowering her and putting her back on the ground. I'm so glad you're finally here, he breathed. I was missing you so much. I know. I'm sorry, she hastened. I came here as soon as I could. It's all right, he sighed. You're here now. They stayed in the park for hours, Alyssa joining in the games the family played. Then, as the sun began to set, she and Ken went off alone to sit upon the hill and watch the view before them as the gentle orange glow swept across the park and the town that surrounded. It's so beautiful here, Alyssa sighed. I don't think I ever want to leave this town. Ken smiled, turning away from the sunset. He didn't speak, but he leaned closer to Alyssa then, kissing her deeply. He broke away from her, putting his arm around her and holding her close, as they sat upon the bench, gazing at the world around them. So what are you going to do, Ken asked her quietly, when we finish college? I want to be a teacher, Alyssa said. It's what I've always wanted to do. I just respect them so much. She paused, a faraway look in her eyes. I want to be like that someday. I'm sure you will, Ken gleamed, taking her hand in his, and with his other hand trailing his fingers along the back of her hand. What about you? She asked him. What do you want to do? I don't really know, Ken admitted. I want to get a job and earn as much money as I can so that we can buy a place together and get married. The edges of Alyssa's eyes crinkled joyfully as she listened. I want that, she breathed. I want that more than anything. I know, Ken nodded. Do you, Alyssa began. Do you think we could stay in this town? She asked. I want to stay close to my family. Of course we can, Ken said to her. I don't want to leave my family either. And, Alyssa began shyly, never having spoken about this before. Do you think that one day we might have children? Ken hesitated, caught a little off guard by the question. Yeah, he said at last. I'd like that. The next day, Ken went to school. Even here, he had managed to avoid Mustang, going so far as to even change classes, which had been a big hassle, but in the end had been worth it. As he sat in his seat, he glanced about him contentedly. No Mustang, he sighed happily to himself. Good. The class continued as normal, but something was different that day. Though Ken was not the first person to notice it. One of the other students closest to the window turned from the teacher, who stood with her back to the room as she wrote on the board. Seconds later, a second student turned to stare out of the window, then a third. Ken, completely oblivious, continued to write in his book, copying some notes. At first, he heard something tapping the window, which he ignored, and then he heard shouting. Ken's heart sunk in his chest as he recognized the muffled voice. Ken! 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 Hey, Ken! 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 Ken's eyebrows twitched in irritation, and he turned in his seat, glaring at Mustang, who hung outside the window, waving at him. Hey, Ken! Mustang called merrily to him. Hey, Ken! Hey! Ken began to feel suddenly very uncomfortable as he realized he was the center of attention. The other students had noticed, and of course the teacher had too by now. Outside the window, Mustang was being so loud there was no way anyone would not have noticed him at this point. Ken rose from his seat, stomping over to him and opening the window. What do you want? Ken snapped. You're annoying the entire building. This is the first floor, you know. Mustang hung precariously to the window ledge, with nothing beneath his legs to hold him up. I found you! Mustang gasped, moving his fingers to try to get a better grip of the ledge. Good! Listen, I need to talk to you. You could have called me, Ken snapped. I'm in the middle of class. You blocked me, remember? And why did you change class? I know you're avoiding me. Why are you avoiding me? Why, Ken? Why? Ken glanced behind him into the classroom, where the other students and teachers were watching him. Several of the students were amused. The teacher, on the other hand, was greatly irritated, standing with her arms folded and glaring at him. I've got class, Ken said to Mustang again, moving back. Go away. Hey, wait. Ken closed the window on him, turning back and returning to his seat, trying his best to ignore the stares and sniggers of the other students. "Ken!" came Mustang's muffled voice through the window as he began to bang on the glass. "Ken! Ken! 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 Ah!" Ken glanced around, eyes wide now. Mustang wasn't there anymore. Ken could only assume he had fallen. "Stacy," he said awkwardly to the teacher, "I'm sorry, but can I please be excused?" "Just go," the teacher sighed wearily. "I don't want another interruption like this again. I have a class to run." "Yes," Ken bowed apologetically as he rose, quickly gathering his things. "Thank you. And sorry," he added awkwardly in a mumble. He hurried from the classroom, ignoring the other students that laughed at him. "Stupid Mustang," he cursed under his breath. "What on earth is he doing? Why is he here? That jerk." When Ken reached the ground floor outside where Mustang had fallen, he found Mustang had interrupted another class, the one directly below Ken's, and was flirting with another boy through the open window. Ken faltered for a second, watching as Mustang spoke teasingly to this boy, stroking his chin and moving his body seductively, as if shy. As if he would ever be. Ken glowered furiously at this. The teacher in this classroom seemed indifferent to what was going on and ignored them both, continuing the lecture as if nothing was happening. Ken felt anger rise in him. He stormed towards Mustang. "Hey!" Mustang beamed, seeing Ken approaching. "It's you! I was hoping to—" Ken grabbed Mustang by the arm roughly, turning and pulling him with him as he stormed away. "Call me!" Mustang waved back at the boy in the window, who waved back at him, blowing him a kiss. Ken dragged him around the corner, letting go of him the second they were out of sight, chest rising and falling as he breathed heavily with anger. "What the hell?" "What?" Mustang asked innocently. "What do you think you're doing interrupting my class like that? Do you think you could have been a little more subtle?" "Subtle is really not my style," Mustang replied flatly. "No shit!" Ken's hands immediately went to his mouth at that. Even Mustang looked surprised. "I can't believe I just swore. I never swear." "I don't swear. I've never sworn before." Ken lowered his hand, feeling even angrier. "You're changing me for the worse," Ken said to Mustang. "Everything is all your fault." "Huh? What do you even want?" Ken snapped at him. "Just to talk to you," Mustang replied, ignoring his outburst. "And to ask why you've been avoiding me." "My life is my own," Ken glared. "I don't have to hang around you." "What changed?" Mustang asked him. "You used to like hanging out with me." "You're a curse upon me," Ken said to him, showing his hands. "I've never fought with my family or girlfriend before I met you. Never. Do you have any idea the problems you've caused me?" "Problems? Like what?" Mustang asked flatly, getting irritated himself. "My family know what you are. They don't like me hanging out with someone who's gay." Ken bit his tongue. And then Mustang said something to Ken that caught him off guard. "You make me sick. How can you believe your parents truly love you if they treat you that way?" Ken's anger instantly dissipated, and he stared at Mustang in shock and confusion then. "What is the real reason you're avoiding me?" Mustang asked him. "Are you in love with me?" Ken's heart stopped in his chest at that. So shocked was he at the absurdity of the statement. "What?" "That's it, isn't it? You're jealous of the life I live, and you want to be more like me. But it's more than that, isn't it?" Ken could only stare back in silent disbelief, utterly lost for words. "Well," Mustang said, placing his hands upon his hips, "if I was going out with you, I would love you for who you are, not who I wanted you to be." He smirked then. "I wouldn't try to change your true nature. Not ever." Mustang turned and walked away. Shortly after that, Mustang went missing. Ken was on his way home from college in the afternoon the next day when several figures rushed up to him. Ken recognized them as some of the men Mustang hung out with at the club. "Oh, Ken, I thought that was you," one of the men said. "Listen, have you seen Mustang? We're really worried about him." No? Ken said, pausing and turning back to them. Why? Is something wrong? He's been acting weird lately, one of the men said. He's not himself. We are really worried. Ken felt a twinge in his stomach. Ken hesitated. I haven't seen him, Ken said again. Sorry. Well, one of the men said, if you see him, just, Ken began to feel increasingly more nervous as he saw how worried they were. Could you just tell him to call us if you see him? One of the men said. It would really mean a lot to us. Sure, Ken said flatly. I will. Thanks a lot. They moved on. Ken stayed where he was, feeling suddenly uneasy. He forced the worries from his mind, instead turning away and heading home. But he stopped a short while later, feeling his stomach growing tighter. What is this? He worried then. Why do I feel this way? Ken turned and looked around. Mustang. He pulled out his mobile, sending a message to his brother, telling his family he will be home late. He replaced the phone back in his pocket, then began to walk the town, searching for Mustang. Why am I doing this? Ken huffed desperately to himself as he searched the entire town, moving at a hurried pace from one place to another, glancing all about him as he went. He cursed himself then, throat growing tighter as he became ever more frustrated with himself and worried for Mustang. It was starting to get dark now. Where is he? And then he heard a noise. It was only faint and must be coming from a source some distance away. He froze as he listened. Mustang? Ken ran towards the source of the noise. He found Mustang shortly after. Ken slowed to a stop, breathing heavily and staring up in shock as Mustang balanced precariously on the roof of one of the shops beside him, shouting and cackling to himself and calling out incoherently. He swayed on the spot and was clearly not himself. Ken presumed initially that he was drunk. Mustang! He called up to him. Mustang! Mustang stopped his shouting for a moment, turning and staring down at Ken. Hey! What are you doing there dressed like that? What? Why did you bring the seals with you? You know they're not supposed to be here. He's delusional, Ken realized with shock. He must be hallucinating. Mustang, Ken called again. Don't move. I'm coming up to get you. Stay there. Don't let the Illuminati find us. They have secrets. Ken ran around the back of the building quickly, his mind suddenly fraught with worry for Mustang as he moved dangerously close to the edge. The Illuminati are everywhere, Mustang called. Everywhere around us, wherever we look, you'll find them. Mustang! Ken shouted to him, clambered onto the balcony railings, jumping up to catch the rooftop and climbing up. Stay where you are! This part of town was the part where there were only shops and no houses nearby. It was deserted at this time, save for the two of them. They could both shout all night and bother no one. It was only Ken and Mustang. He climbed onto the roof, seeing Mustang standing there. Mustang whirled around to face him, eyes wide, beginning to back away from Ken, unaware that he was heading closer to the edge. Ken rose to his feet swiftly, rushing over to Mustang and grabbing his arm just as he was about to tip backwards. Ken pulled Mustang sharply towards him. Mustang fell into him, and Ken held him there, gasping heavily as his heart beat painfully in his chest, breathing a sigh of relief. Oh, thank God. He pulled Mustang back from the edge of the roof and looked into his face. He was shocked to see Mustang's pupils were huge, so large that he initially thought his eyes were black. Mustang, Ken spoke firmly, what have you done? Nothing, Mustang whispered. Nothing. He raised his head, smiling at Ken then. It's good to see you. Ken reached into Mustang's pockets, beginning to search him. It wasn't long before he pulled from one of the pockets a small clear plastic bag of blue tablets. What is this? Ken demanded angrily, showing them to him. Mustang smiled upon seeing them. You should try some, he grinned. They'll make you fly. Come on, Ken said, putting his arm around Mustang and helping him walk. I'm taking you home.